Welcome to Peak, Train Like a Girl, a podcast by girls in sport for coaches and girls in sport. We're here to amplify your voice. It deserves to be heard. At Peak, we are a safe place for girls to hang out, learn, grow, and build community. We empower girls in sport and coaches with knowledge, resources, and support we think is necessary in today's athletic environment to thrive. Join us for bold conversations about experiences of girls in sport. Our discussions will make you laugh, cheer, cry, get frustrated, and hopefully rethink the future of girls in sport for generations to come. So whether you're walking, swimming, rowing, commuting, or cleaning your bedroom, take us with you. Follow us. It helps more than you can imagine. Share with an athlete or coach you love, and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. Now, I'm super excited to introduce you to our next guest, Cara. She is an Olympian. She is a wonderful human. I've been connected with her through a friend of mine, Kelly, at Her Huddle. And Kelly, as Cara and I both agreed, is a wealth of information and energy and support. And it's so reassuring to me to know that there's people out there that are supporting, even if we're not like directly in contact with each other, whether that's through referrals or through support or lending, a lending hand or giving a clap when a clap is necessary. And we're really trying to spread the message about empowerment and cheering girls and coaches on for long time athletic careers and coaching experiences. And Cara, I knew I wanted to have you on. I know you talked a little bit about being a journalism major and starting your career through journaling and then opening up this company, which we're going to have you talk about. But I fell in love with your words. I've gone back and read some of them, and you definitely, people that are gifted in words, I think, have such a true gift. And so I will tell you that behind the scenes, I have been reading your words, and I'm so excited to get warmed up with you for you to share your story. Are you ready?
I'm ready. And I want to say one thing. Well, thank you, of course. And I will similarly give shout out to Kelly for connecting us.
Yeah.
She is a superstar. So I am a 3-time national Team USA member. I have not competed at the Olympics. So I just wanted to be clear about that up front, so there's no confusion.
Thank you for clarifying that. No, so thank you for clarifying that. So 3-time national team, correct?
Yeah, I raced for the U.S. national team in rowing 2017, 2019, and 2022, and had a big win in 2019 with my pair partner and I. We won the lightweight women's pair at the World Championships that year. So that was a career highlight for me for sure.
Amazing. And then you're going to have to help us during the podcast understanding the difference in a sport like rowing between the U.S. nationals and the Olympic teams. I can't wait to learn all about that. So thank you for stopping and clarifying there. We believe clear as kind here for sure. All right, Cara, road trip or plane?
Oh, that's a tough one. I want to say plane just because you could get to more exciting places, more quickly. But a little piece of me pulls that road trip too, because I do a lot of road trips with my husband, and it's kind of like nice because we have quality time together in the car. So I'm going to go 50-50.
I agree. So when you're on your road trips, are you a podcast person or a music person?
I am podcast. I'm going to bring him up again just because we're normally together. He is music. And normally when we're on those like longer road trips together, we'll dive into music.
Nice. We split it. We do both now because I'm more of a podcast. My husband's more of a music. So we come up with like a gentle mix of both, which makes the road trip, I think, a little more easy for both of us to digest.
Do you have a favorite podcast?
Oh my gosh. Right now, besides Pete, of course, I do like the daily. I think it's just a really good way to kind of dive in and listen a little deeper on some subjects. But I've been listening to I'll search a person. So I've been listening to way more podcasts that Taylor Swift is on because I just think her story's inspiring and she's actually very funny. How about you? What's your favorite podcast right now?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up like my library because I do have so many. So I just got turned on to Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus's podcast. Also, they record with Clay Skipper, so that's called Excellence Actually. Historically, I love I love Gabby Reese. She has a great
Love.
energy, in my
I'm
opinion.
listening to that one too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then I don't know. I mean, I've got a whole list, but I'll pick those two out as my top two for right now.
Perfect. And I'm actually reading right now Win the Inside Game that Magnus wrote. So
Oh, okay.
he's super talented. Yeah, he's a really obviously gifted author and gifted
Yeah.
speaker. So I've never heard the podcast though, so I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all right, track workout or long run, given the choice.
Hmm. I'm gonna go, well, I'm gonna say neither, 'cause I do not run. But given the choice of like more of a track style versus an endurance, I'll go with the track. I'm doing a lot of lap swimming right now, and even though like the workouts are long, it's more of that interval type training. So yeah.
Okay, so swimming or rowing?
Oh, my all my, rowing community is gonna probably look on this answer not favorably, but I am all in with swimming right now. Finally, after man, over 25 years, I think in the boat, I'm just changing it up. My body is really liking being in the pool. It feels like I'm returning to my roots a little bit because that's what I was growing up, was a competitive swimmer. So, yeah.
I love that. And now you don't have the boat to save you, so you got to figure out like how to stay afloat. So I love that you like are owning that and embracing that. That's so good. So I think that's a
Hmm.
perfect place to stop. And I want to hear about your story about being a girl in sports. So obviously it looks like you started in the pool, but why don't you fill us in?
I did. So competitively, I started in the pool, or I should say, I guess that like, formal competitive sports. But when I was thinking about this question, really what came up for me was just I grew up in an active family. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My mom was not involved in sports, but my dad played football competitively throughout college. And as a girl in sports, I mean, we used to have running races around the house. It sounds silly, but we would have like arm wrestling contests. I grew up in Connecticut for a few years. Then we moved when I was going into fifth grade to New Jersey. And I have these like clear memories of playing street hockey with the kids in the neighborhood every summer. So that is what came to mind at first when I thought girl in sports. And it was like, all about being active, but also just it was fun, right? And then, yeah, I started competitively swimming, let's see, fourth or fifth grade. And I did that right up through high school. And I didn't start rowing until college, believe it or not. I walked onto my team freshman year and, never looked back.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you talked about your relationship to sport was, you said being active, but the word that I kept envisioning was the word play. I mean, you were literally playing. And I think some of that has been a little lost with upcoming generations where things appear to me to be more structured. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a big topic, right? So, yes, 100%. When I think back for myself to those early years, play certainly does, there certainly was an element to play, especially with those street hockey games. I mean, oh man, they were so much fun. Um, so, in terms of structure now, it's a little bit hard for me to speak on. Kyle and I do not have kids, and I don't work very closely with that younger, with that elementary, middle
Yeah.
school demographic. But, I'm certainly aware of the current climate. I hear a lot about it. Samantha Livingston, I think I mentioned before, like she's a mentor and friend of mine. She works quite closely, I think, with that demographic. And we have conversations about, yeah, what does it mean? What does the climate look like right now for kids coming up in sports? And, from what I know of, there certainly is this culture of like early specialization, right? Like parents pushing their kids maybe a little bit too soon. I'm personally not not in the camp per se of everybody has to diversify, like we have to play 3 4 sports growing up. When I think back to my childhood and growing up as a swimmer, I loved every second I swam in the pool, or I was in the pool. That's not to say I didn't, struggle and have disappointments and frustrations, especially throughout high school when, my times leveled off and plateaued. But why I'm bringing that up is because I think if my parents came to me and were, either pushing or advocating for, you have to do two sports, you have to do three sports. I actually would have resisted that because that's not what I wanted. That's not what would have served me. So I think generally, like when I think about the sports landscape, I certainly think a piece of the conversation needs to be like, well, what is going to serve the athlete the best, right? What is going to serve the child the best, the youth athlete the best? And certainly, and Anne Marie, I'm sure you have worlds more insight into this than I do, right? Certainly, like that question is going to mean different things at different stages of development. But I do think that's an important piece of the conversation that seems to sometimes get missed when we're like pitting against like one sport early specialization versus like the complete opposite. There's probably a spectrum and some more nuance involved.
Yeah, I think that it, it's so interesting because I'm telling you, I do these podcasts because it makes me a better human and a better coach. So that is a really, really good perspective. Now, and I think you're right. I think that you were maybe unique, and I don't know what the percentage is as a fifth grader to kind of have a love relationship with being in the pool and knew that that's what you wanted to do. And I think that that's amazing. I'm not really sure and I don't work with that age group either, by the way. I work primarily with high school athletes and older. So I don't spend a ton of time in that arena. What I recognize, particularly from a physical perspective, and particularly in the sport that I am in, is that athletes that are pushed too hard, too fast at a younger age have a tendency to break more. And that's just, I mean, I am in a sport that running is a little tougher on the body, although I think swimming has its issues with, shoulders and, some other things. And I guess that's my thing is that kids that are running 12 months a year and not doing anything else, their bodies don't get the opportunity to repair or develop strength or those type of things. And so, but I think you're exactly right. Now that you're sitting there saying that, I'm like, you're right. The kids that love it, why would you force them to do something they didn't want to do? So I think that's an incredibly beautiful perspective. So I wrote that down and I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, well, and I fully agree with you too, right? And I'm sure there's statistics to back up exactly what you said. So maybe too, then part of the conversation is if you are specializing, quote unquote specializing, or just not even specializing, call it like playing the same sport year
Yeah.
round. Do you have a coach, or are you involved in a program where you have the necessary rest periods, where you have the necessary breaks, right? Like if you look to any elite program, you have those like macro and micro cycles. You're not just going hard all year. So that's one point. And then second, whether it's swimming, track, rowing, something else where you're doing that repetitive motion, is that supplemented with the right and the appropriate amount of cross training, with the right lifting? One thing, so I actually, coming out of college, and I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I was out of the boat 2008, 2009, I think part of 2010, if I'm getting my years correct. And that's because I was struggling with injury. And
Mm.
when I look back and reflect, I think what happened was I was training and performing at a certain level in college. And then when I jumped into post collegiate training, the volume skyrocketed. I didn't
Mm.
have the appropriate strength base kind of intact supporting me. I am tall, I am long, I am lanky. I don't have like the natural muscular build. I had to work for all that and build it up. So without that, I got injured. But to bring it back to our original point, like, yes, if you're working, really regardless of age, but to eliminate or at least to mitigate some of that potential for early burnout, like we were saying, if you are pursuing sport year round, like, yeah, let's make sure, and whether it's coming from the coach, the parent, whoever, like that is also integrating the necessary rest periods, and then whatever other supplemental exercises, yoga, whatever it is you need to enable that athlete to pursue their sport year round, and keep them healthy and, hopefully like healthy and happy.
Yeah, you're exactly right, which is why we developed Peak. And again, as we were talking about earlier, the acronyms, the FIT, so the female integrated training, and you keep using the word rest, but to recover, to, establish outside interests, sleep, all of those things do matter. And I think you're exactly right. If we're not talking about those things in a in a way that a student athlete, whether that's a middle school, high school, or even a collegiate athlete, kind of understands that if you're not supplementing activity with these other things, something is going to sacrifice. And that I want to kind of circle back to what you do and where your area of expertise, because one of the things that can break is our relationship with sport, in particular for people that want to be high performing. And I love that you talk about that in your coaching, that the chief visionary in the process is you. So is the athlete. And I think that is such an incredible perspective and such an amazing way to say it, because I think a lot of times, at least from what I see, is the coach wants to be the center of it all, and they want, and really if that it should be athlete centered, where it's their vision and their wants. And so tell me a little bit about your philosophy there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Um, yeah, right. That it feels like a big question. So I'm like, how do I tackle this? So 100% like athlete centric, right?
Yeah.
So then who who is the person we're talking about? Coach athlete, though, it's kind of coming up for me is like, who is the person that is facilitating the athlete to get in touch with their vision, encouraging that, you know, and it's not always that coach, right? And it
Mm,
doesn't have to be a mental performance coach. It doesn't have to be a high performance coach. It could be a parent, it could be a mentor, it could be, it could be a friend who's in this space. But I think the point is, like, as the athlete, it's so valuable, arguably vital to get in touch with, like, what what is your vision? What's your vision of success? We were talking about social media earlier, whether it's social media or simply the environment you're in. It's so easy to just get kind of sucked into this path of, okay, I'm on this team, I'm doing the things, this is what we want, this is what success is, and just kind of be showing up every day and working hard and maybe feeling good, maybe not be feeling good. But there is a different level that happens, and it feeds into like a higher level of performance when you as an individual and you as an athlete can get in touch with what you truly want from the program, from the sport you're pursuing, and
right.
also what makes that important, what makes that meaningful outside of, all the external noise that we hear, because ultimately it's going to be different. It's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We started, we'll have to let Caitlin chime in here, because I don't remember when I started it, but I started doing a values workshop, excuse me. And so people do figure out their own personal values and kind of the why behind that and the habits that are going to help support that. And then from there, we kind of pick a team. Everyone gets to put one value in, and we come up with a list of team values. And then we talk about it. Do we want to keep this as a value? So people do get the opportunity to have their own personal values. But then I think, in my opinion, I'd love your expert opinion, to keep the team kind of cohesive, that we have to have values as a team too. But that changes every year, I think, even. And so I don't have a current mission or vision statement. We have a value statement that gets figured out and kind of put together by the athletes every year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. So I am a huge believer in values work. I
Mm,
think partly too because that is one of, when I was doing work, when I was still competing, when I was doing work with Samantha, that was a big game changer for me. But similarly, so I think both are important. And I actually just ran a workshop at a university where, to kick things off, we did spend some time, one, getting in touch with individual visions, right? And this is a rowing
mm,
team, so it's critical that the team has, I mean, I guess that's true for any team, right? That the team has a collective vision. But all of those individual visions, right, are going to
yeah,
feed into that team vision, number one.
I
And then
agree.
number two, like, those individual visions are also going to, like, feed the individual athletes, like, when they do hit their tough spots, along the way, which are inevitable. So getting in touch with, like, the vision, and then second, identifying, yes, like, the personal core values. And then sometimes what I'll do is we identify core values and then we identify athlete values. Now, a lot of times they're
Mm,
overlap, but sometimes there's not overlap. And then, to your point, taking that having the discussion, right? Having the discussions and the breakout groups with the team. And it's not easy, but ultimately coming to agreement on like, these are our 4 to 5 team values. This is what they mean, right? The definition is hugely important.
Yeah, we did that. We defined it, which was people are like, "Why are we doing this?" I'm like, "Because you have to know what you're talking about."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know, let's pick one, like what's one of your team values that came up, if you don't mind me sharing, or if you don't mind sharing?
Confidence was one.
Confidence. Okay. So confidence can mean one thing to me, can mean one thing to Caitlin, can mean one thing to you, Anne Marie. So in that team setting, identifying or defining what confidence means to the individuals, and then, yes, coming to that collective team definition, right? Which I usually personally, and also like when I'm coaching, use as something to set a foundation, but they could also be used as North Stars throughout the season too. They work in both ways.
Explain that a little deeper.
Sure. So like core values, when I think of core values as the foundation, I think of them as grounding me, right? Or grounding the athlete, right? So when I need to solve a problem or when I kind of come to a crossroads, like I ground or I refer to those core values because they create the space of stability and help guide me, right, in that decision making process. Similarly, like let's say I am at a crossroads and I need a North Star, like where am I going, right? I have my vision, but paired with that are these values, and that's kind of help guiding me forward.
Oh, Caitlin, do you have anything you want to add? Because I'm like kind of like,
yeah, I just think
that was really good.
That's so well said, and a lot to think about how you use the word North Star, because I think, especially, I mean, I can say this applies to my life all the time, even at college. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? It's important to be able to rely on values to ground myself. But especially when you're in a season and it can feel so busy and it's all happening so fast, being able to rely on values, whether they're team or individual, can be such a grounding force when everything else can feel up in the air, like uncontrollable. Being able to rely on like your original mission or what puts you in that sport to begin with is just such a good thing for athletes to have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's right.
Yeah. And sometimes too, what's something I learned and what's also coming to mind for me, and I'm curious, like, if either of you have feedback, whether it's in sports or just as a student or in life, like sometimes you get to this place, or whether it's like a specific situation or just maybe like a vague or general feeling, and you feel frustrated about something, or you feel stuck, or it's just like it's an unsettling feeling. It can manifest in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes you could look at your values and be like, oh, I feel this way because I highly value learning, or I highly value growth. And I feel like I'm at a plateau right now. And that's why I just feel this like unsettled feeling in my body,
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I feel that. And I have tried to be intentional about, and one of the things I tell my student athletes, and I think that, because sometimes a values workshop can feel a little heavy, and I'm just curious what you think too, is that to know that your values can change. Like once you picked a value, it's like not going to be yours till you're 78. Like you can change your mind. So I think it's important to keep reflecting back and think, all right, is this upsetting me because this is my core value, or is it upsetting me because this should be my core value, or this is something I want to be my core value now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and 100% they can change. So this is one of the things, and I actually think we skipped last year though, as I'm saying this. So going into the new year, this is one of the things that my husband and I started doing together or at the start of each year, is I would kind of sit down, reassess or write out my personal values. He would do his, and then we would come together and do family core values for the year. But point being, like, we try to make it a habit where we do it year after year, because yes, Anne-Marie, to your point, like they do change. I think that would make sense I think it makes sense that they change, right? Because we're all like learning and evolving and growing. So what's important to us is going to change, to some extent too.
Yeah, I agree. Caitlin, what about you? What about if you're in a situation where you're frustrated and kind of connecting back to your values, is that something
Yeah,
that you do or see? Yeah.
for sure. I mean, especially I just feel like I keep relating it to college, but it's such a transition of change. And like, I feel like it can change weekly where like you feel so stable and then you have a week where you just feel off and you can't exactly tell why. And it really, I think about my values a lot because I came here and I love learning. I love quality friendships, making intentional time for friends. And I know whenever I like am feeling off and I just can't put my finger on it because I feel like sometimes it's just I just sit with like an uncomfortable feeling and it's hard for me to kind of shake it. Really remembering like I need to spend really intentional time with my friends because these key conversations about my life and about how they're doing really affects me a lot, affects my emotional health. And same with I really value intentional learning and learning about things not just in my classes, but things I'm passionate about. So I really do think that athletes should prioritize always going back to your values, but also just in general with relationships with life, especially growing up, like in key transitional periods, relying on your values can just be such a really helpful tool to stay grounded.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's so helpful. Carol, we are going to get cooled down here in a little bit, but I'm wondering if you could circle around two questions that I have. And so the first would be if you had two or three tips that you think would be useful for the coaches and athletes that listen to our podcast that would help them with some of this, either whether it's surrounding a values work or not, or maybe even just focusing on high performance athletes and things that can help them navigate their experience. So that's one. And the second question I want to ask you is, as a high performance coach and a mental health advocate, what's the difference between those two things?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. So let me tackle the first one here. And I just wanted to actually pull up for my own reference. I don't know everything off the top of my head. I have a values clarification
Oh,
sheet
I
I was
love
going to
that.
pull up. Yeah. So
So do
in terms
I.
of
We should compare ours.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I designed this a couple of years ago. I think it's available on Kelly's website, although I'm not exactly sure where it lives on the site, but regardless, I could send it to you and
Yeah, that'd be
you're
great.
welcome to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that was actually my first tip, right? And not to beat a dead horse here, but clarity is so important. So clarity on what you want, get clear on your vision, right? Number one, vision. What makes that vision important or meaningful to you, right? And then related, get clear on your values and those definitions, right? So some things to reflect on when you're just when you're trying to identify those values. One, like when do I feel most like myself, right? What do I value most in life? Two, something that could help you is thinking about and identifying a peak moment, right? And then trying to figure out exactly what made that moment special, what values were being honored in that moment. Another way to look at this or, help you along in this process is really getting clear on your must-haves. Caitlin, I felt like you were talking about this a little bit earlier when you were diving into values. So, like
Yeah.
beyond your basic needs, what do you need to have in your life so that you feel fulfilled, right? You could think of non-negotiables. So, there's a couple of other reflection exercises, but that gives you a little bit of a taste. And then two more, and maybe I don't want to get too long winded, so maybe I'll just get into my second point. But the other thing I wanted to bring up in terms of tips is really get really get clear, intentional. I'm trying to think of a better word here, though. It's not coming to mind, but in terms of the support you have in place, right? Like that, whether you
Mm,
call it your inner circle or that circle of trust, that can take some time. It can take some experimentation, right? Because you want to cultivate it. And maybe it's only like two, three, four people, but you want these people that you could trust. Maybe they each bring to the table a certain skill set that supports you. But then, too, a lot of it is fit, right? Like, when you're thinking about a performance coach or a mentor or a role model, like, some of it is just like, you vibe with their energy. But that circle I feel like is fundamental.
mm,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't talk about that, I don't think enough. And so I think that's really good, particularly in a world of social media when people can be getting advice from 10,000 people to really understand who your
Yeah.
circle is. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I learned this a little bit the hard way. I've had some interesting experiences with coaches and learned some hard lessons. But yes, it's when you get those right people in place, it can make worlds of difference. And knowing too along these same lines, knowing who to go to and who you can trust when you need somebody to listen versus like maybe when you need somebody to challenge you or help push you.
So true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. All right. The difference between a high performance coach and a mental health advocate, or is there some overlay?
That's a great question. And I actually don't get too much into the mental health space
Okay.
specifically. So yeah, so with coaching though, so my background is I went through a program called the International Coaching Federation. So I do very specific ICF aligned coaching, and with coaching as opposed to let's say therapy or working with psychologists where maybe you dive into some past history and try to unearth it. I heard this is not my phrasing, but I heard this and it made sense to me recently. Like that kind of follows the trail of tears, somebody characterized it,
Okay.
versus coaching is forward looking, right?
Oh,
Following a trail of dreams or a trail of vision. So, yeah, so the type of coaching I do is again aligned with the ICF. We bring in the mental performance, just I have a strong background in that given my own athletic career. And
sure.
we get clarity on where we want to go and how we want to get there and what tools we need to cultivate in order to support that journey. While I don't dive in specifically to mental health, there is this component of building out, your toolbox of resilience or the skill sets you need to support you when you are feeling down or you are feeling angry and you want to get into that space where you feel like you're more in that flow, right? So that's certainly a component of it, knowing how to take care of ourselves when we need to.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And I love because I think that sometimes those words can get confused. And I think that was really clear. So I appreciate you taking a minute just to explain those couple things. I want to thank you so much. This was such an incredible conversation. You have such an easy way about you, and you can tell that you're thoughtful in all of your responses. So I'm really looking forward to not only writing the show notes for this so I can go back over my notes, but to listening to the recording. Caitlin, do you have anything before we close it down?
No, I just can't thank you enough for being so just explaining it so well and the concepts that you've talked about. You really have such a great perspective on them. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I
Oh,
agree.
thank you both. This was so lovely. I appreciate your time. Yeah, it was wonderful to chat, and I hope to keep in touch and maybe see you in the next Her Huddle provider huddle. And yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
not
It was,
done
it
though.
was.
We got to get you cooled down. We've got some really hard hitting questions ahead of you still.
Oh, okay. I'm ready to cool down. Okay.
Okay. So if talent weren't an issue, this has now become my favorite question. What sport would you love to excel in?
Olympic weightlifting.
Love that.
Easy.
My goodness. You have to tell me more.
I am just a weightlifter at heart. I'm so not built for it. I had this dream to really go hard into Olympic weightlifting when I stopped competing at a high level. I tried for a little while. I had this amazing coach, and then I have since realized it's not smart for me to go down this path of doing snatch work. I really don't need to be doing that. But I do clean work and I do get in the gym quite a bit. So yeah.
Absolutely, maybe, and that may be the first time we've heard that answer. So that was absolutely amazing. All right, if somebody who's your like dream dinner party guest, who's the person that if you had one person that you'd want to go have dinner with, who would it be?
Oh, dream guest. Oh, this is so hard. Can I ask you? Can I deflect and ask you who yours is?
But I think I would do Simone Biles just because I think she's been through a lot and I would just love to kind of pick her brain a little.
Oh, yeah, she has been. Yeah. I admire her a lot of what I know of her. Okay. I have many that are coming to mind. I am
Okay.
actually going to go with Gabby Reese just because we brought her up earlier and I have
Love
been
that.
really loving the work that she does. And I think she would be fantastic to meet.
Amazing. Now, the real important question is, what would you cook for Gabby Reese?
Mm. Can we go out? Can
Sure.
we go out to dinner?
Where would you take her?
Okay, I'll give my favorite restaurant in Sarasota a shout out down here in Sarasota, Laurel Park, and there's this fabulous little restaurant called Indigenous. Highly recommend
Ooh,
it. So I think I would take her there.
who's paying, you or her?
Oh goodness, now this is getting really hard. We'll go halves, 50-50.
There you go. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, and then I said that and I was like, oh, I kind of take that back. Maybe I would treat her because I would just be a little bit in awe. So maybe this is me putting out into the universe that, Gabby, if you need a
Come on,
podcast
Gabby.
guest,
Come
I am
have
here.
dinner in Sarasota.
Yeah, let's do it. She does some sort of pool training. I don't quite know the details of it, but maybe we could get that going too.
He's a pretty rock star athlete. That is absolutely for sure. So, Cara, thank you so much again for taking the time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us. Make sure you are sharing our episodes with female athletes or coaches you love. Don't forget, we have recently launched our app. If you want more information on that, make sure you message us through Instagram or on our website. And we can't wait to share another episode of Peak with you.